Pentecost Sunday, Whitsun, marks the coming of the Holy Spirit, the power of God surrounding us. After Jesus has risen and gone to heaven, we are nevertheless surrounded by God. The disciples who had seen Jesus disappear and were now meeting together on their own for prayer and worship were waiting for the coming of the Holy Spirit, and on the day of Pentecost the Spirit comes with power, descending upon them like flames of fire above their heads, and they're filled with confidence to proclaim the story of Jesus and the love of God, and they're given extraordinary powers to go out and to speak in tongues, which turn out to be foreign languages that the cosmopolitan gathering in Jerusalem at that time can all understand in their own language. Somebody in the crowd makes this remark: "Are not all these who are speaking Galileans? How is it that we hear each of us in our own native language? Parthians, Medes, Elamites, and residents of Mesopotamia, Judea and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt and the parts of Libya belonging to Cyrene, and visitors from Rome, both Jews and proselytes, Cretans and Arabs. In our own languages we hear them speaking about God's deeds of power." That's a reading from Acts chapter 2 that people like to try and avoid having to read at the front of church because it has all those funny tongue twisters in it. But all those funny geographical names from Bible times indicate that there was a whole variety of languages spoken by the assembled cosmopolitan gathering in Jerusalem at that time, and yet they all seemed able to hear and understand what the disciples were saying as they were speaking in tongues, proclaiming God's love and the message of Jesus and God's presence by his Spirit with us. And what this is saying, the theme of Pentecost, the coming of the Spirit, is that the message of God cuts across all languages. It is something that is completely universal. It is not defined by any one language. Over the last 2,000 years, the Church has very often at times tried to keep God contained within language and sets of words. The Latin Bible, for about 1,000 years, was considered sacred and it mustn't be written in any other language. And there are exclusive sets of definitions of what God is in creedal statements and doctrines, and woe betide anyone who departs from them. But the message of Pentecost is that the Spirit moves among everyone, that God is there for all, and you don't have to know a particular language, you don't have to know a particular set of words, you don't have to have acquired and learnt a particular terminology and set of doctrines and creeds to be close to God. God, by his Holy Spirit, is as close to us as the sun on our faces, the air that we breathe, the power of gravity that holds us to earth. All these things are God's power. We see God's Spirit in beautiful ways arrayed in nature, the cosmos and the world, and we see his fingerprint on the map of our lives and our circumstances. God is there for all. God is here for all. God is closer to us than we think. His Spirit is not far away in some temple or in the confines of a church, but right here with us in our everyday lives, moment by moment. And it is the task of the church not to say, you must come within these walls in order to be correct before God, but rather to say, God is everywhere. We are here to tell you that God is already in your lives, and all you need to do is open your eyes and take note and see him and bask in his glory and be reassured that whatever your circumstances, he is there for you from beginning to end, and all the strange and sometimes testing episodes that happen to you in the meantime. The reading from Acts 2 concludes, "Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved." And what does that mean, to call on the name of the Lord? It simply means to recognise his presence in life, to see his hand at work, to see the mark of his fingerprint in nature and in life circumstances. In those last days, God declares, "I will pour out my Spirit upon all people." The Church promotes this lovely message that God is universal, and we share in something that belongs to every man, woman and child, all who are created by the Creator. This sense of connection with God was put in a rather nice way in the 1600s by a reverend called Thomas Traherne, who wrote profound reflections on the meaning of life and faith. Love is an infinite treasure to its object, and its object is so to it. God is love, and you are his object. You are created to be his love, and he is yours. He is happy in you when you are happy, as parents in their children. He is afflicted in all your afflictions. And whosoever toucheth you, toucheth the apple of his eye. Will you not be happy in all his enjoyments? He feeleth in you, will you not feel in him? He hath obliged you to love him, and if you love him, you must of necessity be heir of the world, for you are happy in him. All his praises are your joys, all his enjoyments are your treasures, all his pleasures are your enjoyments. In God you are crowned, of God you are mindful. In him you feel, in him you live and move and have your being. In him you are blessed. Whatsoever therefore serveth him, serveth you. And in him you inherit all things. God, by his Holy Spirit, is already with us. It is simply for us to sit up and take notice and to be reassured for all eternity.